Alright guys, today I'm going to do something new to me, something special. One of my viewers asked me if I can recommend a nice Hungarian pie. Now, we don't actually do pies in Hungary, and I was quite shocked 20 years ago when I came to this country to see pies. It's just the idea of having a stew baked in a pastry is not familiar, or it wasn't familiar with me back then. Of course, I've been here for 20 years now and I love pies. I love British pies and it's a great idea. And what I've decided today is to come up with a Hungarian pie. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use pork shoulder, make a Hungarian stew, and then I'm going to do a Pogácsa, which I've done in my previous video. I've been using a frozen one for the cheddar, but I'm going to do fresh one today, which I'm going to use a mixture of flours. And the only reason I'm using a mixture of flours is that because I had 3 different flours open and I've decided to use them up. But if you want to recreate this recipe, I'm using or let's just pretend that I'm using 600 grams of plain flour. This is a mixture of whole grain flour and pasta flour and whatever. Anyway, rest of the ingredients is going to be butter, yeast for this one, a bit of sour cream again for this one, cheese. I'm using red Leicester, but you can use cheddar cheese, it's fine. I'm also using a bit of sheep curd cheese. This one you can replace with just normal cheese if you like to. It's just going to give some extra flavor to the Pogácsa, which is a scone or if you like biscuit. And the twist in all this is that, so basically we don't have pies in Hungary, is not a thing. We do have sweet pies like apple pie and such, but we don't do meat pies because we do stews and we do the biscuit scone Pogácsa thing. But today I'm going to combine the two and I'm going to basically prepare it like I would prepare a British, let's say, steak and kidney pie, or just a steak pie. Yeah, so that's the idea. And then I'm going to serve it with peas, but the peas are going to be slightly special as well, as we would create it in Hungary as a main meal. And we would create this as a main meal, as a cheap filling main meal, and maybe top it with some fried eggs or some sausage as a weekday meal. Quite old-fashioned, but old-fashioned things are coming back in a big way. Now, to start with, I'm going to start with the stew, which I'm going to pressure cook just to save time. If you don't have a pressure cooker, just cook it in the traditional way. For that, I'm going to use quite a bit of onions. I myself like to use onions a lot. I'm quite heavy on onions, but again, it's personal preference. And for the stew, I'm not going to use any paprika in terms of capsicum or peppers, bell peppers, any kind of that. Today only just some tomatoes. And I'm using the smoked belly fat as a base. You can cut this out and just use oil if you like, or lard. This just gives some extra flavor to it. Yeah, and that's about it. So let's crack on and then see where we're gonna get. So I'm just going to start with rendering out the smoked belly fat so I can start to cook the stew. And this thing I just keep in the freezer because it's fat. It's quite easy to work with. It melts in no time. Okay. So small dices. Then we're gonna start on a low heat. Again, just to render the fat out. Say medium heat. And while this is rendering, I'm going to dice the pork shoulder. So I'll just remove the skin And this of course you can turn into crackling if you like to, or you can just add it to the stew as it is for extra flavor, which I'm going to do in this case. And then let me grab another knife, let's say this one. I'll just dice the pork, maybe not this one. Not too big chunks today. And as you see, I've got nice fatty pork shoulder. Okay guys, next I'm going to prepare the pogácsa. In this case is the pastry for the pie, as I said. So mix in yeast. So for 600 grams of flour I'm using 1 packet of yeast. And instant yeast, you don't have to do nothing with it, easy. I'm going to add some salt. I will include the recipe in the description, so you can see roughly how much I used. Again, I don't really measure things, it's just the way I function. That's why I'm not a pastry chef, because for pastry you really, if you want the best results, you need to measure things. Okay, I'm going to add, what's this, 300 mils, around 150 mils of sour cream, more like 200. And we have the butter, which I'm going to use again around 200 grams. Let's get rid of this. So this block is 250. I'll save this for breakfast. The rest can go in the pastry mix. And I'm not melting the butter, it's kind of room temperature-ish. I'm just going to cube and add it to the mix. Okay, that is rendering out nicely. I'm lowering the heat, I don't want to burn it. Okay, what else goes in here? I'm going to add some cheese. Let's say around 100 grams of cheese. Okay, that should do. And of course we have the sheep curd cheese. It's, if you have never had this before, it's not the same, but it's similar to the flavor of feta cheese. This particular one is not as sharp, but it is similar. And as you can see, this one is a very creamy cheese as well. And of course 1 whole egg. Most recipes call for just the egg yolk, not the actual whole egg, but it's what am I going to do with the white? Am I going to throw it away? No, I'll just use 1 whole egg. Okay guys, so far, so these are the ingredients so far. I might add some milk to it, but meanwhile the fat has been rendered out, so I'm going to dice some onions. Not too worried about fine dicing. Okay, I can increase the heat now. So guys, back to the pastry. Just going to work everything together. Let's just stir the onions. Quite looking forward to this actually. Might have to replicate this at work. Okay guys, I'm just going to let this rest for now. Now back to the onions. Getting nicely caramelized. I'm going to add the tomatoes. And the garlic. And I'm also using smoked garlic to add extra flavor. Again, I'm not too worried about finely chopping the garlic. It's all going to melt in the pressure. Smells amazing already. Okay guys, very simple seasoning today. We are doing Hungarian cooking after. We have some ground caraway seeds, not to be confused with cumin. It's the cousin of cumin, a very different flavor. And we're gonna add paprika, sweet Hungarian paprika. You can just use any paprika, but if you can, and you can find some, then I highly recommend to use Hungarian paprika. Now, what we don't want to do with the paprika is to burn it. So I just remove it from the heat. We don't want the bitter burnt paprika flavor. Okay, that's it. And let's see if I've got any marjoram. Do I have any? Yes, I have. Okay guys, marjoram, one of my favorites. Not too much again. Now these are optional. Both of these products you can find on Amazon. This is literally stew flavoring, which I will use a bit. Not too much. These are all paprika based things. And red gold, again it's a paprika paste. Very tasty, but if you don't have these, don't worry, it just enhances the flavors a bit. Also, I'm going to use some kucharek, which I call Happy Chef, because look at this guy, he's so happy. General seasoning with a little MSG added, so this will be the base. Of course, I'm going to add some black pepper. And that's it for now. And we are ready for the meat to be added. Okay, so this goes in as well. And of course don't forget about the skin, I'll just add it in as well. Don't want to waste it. Don't want to waste the skin. I know if I put it in the freezer to make cracking or whatever, it's just going to stay there for 6 months and then I'll throw it away. This way I can still get the flavor and all the collagen from the skin. It's going to add to the stew. Now I'm going to add a bit of water to this, not too much because I don't want it to be too watery, but I do need water so the stew doesn't burn in the pressure, you see. So I'll just bring this to the boil and then I'll put the lid on and cook it under pressure. Now this is pork, it's not going to take too long. Even if you don't cook it in pressure cooker, it would be ready in an hour or so. In this case it's gonna be ready in no time. Next step is to cook off the peas. Just use a bit of butter for that. And 1 onion. Alright, so onions are cooked up. I just add the frozen peas. And if you have normal milk, use normal milk. I'm using oat milk because that's what I have at home. Just going to add milk. And bring this to the boil. And I'm also going to add a whole bunch of parsley to this. Alright, so this is already boiling nicely. Just going to reduce the heat and check the seasoning. Tastes good already. Doesn't actually need much seasoning at the moment. And this is ready in no time. Again, I don't have any more plain flour, so I just use this whole grain bread flour. Doesn't really matter, it's going to thicken it up just nicely. Mix it with the sour cream. Just add a bit of the hot liquid. Okay guys, so I've just added some of this hot liquid to the sour cream, and this way you will have less lumps, or less likely to have lumps. And that's how you thicken this. Full of fiber. Just going to add some Dijon mustard to this after tasting. I think it's going to be a good match to the stew. And tiny bit of happy chef just to enhance the flavors which are already there. But again guys, if you want a nice and budget meal, this is perfect. Okay, next step is the pastry. Now, I was going to save this for breakfast, but actually I'm going to use the butter to butter the dish. That's it. Nice, I still have some butter left. Let's see how the pastry is doing. Of course, because this is very heavy on fat, it's not going to rise that easily, but it does have the yeast, and the yeast is going to work. You see how much of this I need to use for the actual pie. I reckon about this much, and the rest I'm going to turn into Pogácsa, and for the bottom I'll probably use a bit more than for the top. So let's start with that. Just lightly dusted the workspace with flour. The only thing that I only have this flour with added seeds, which is not very ideal, but it will work. This should be, let's see, yeah, this should work. All right. Lovely. Okay guys, the pressure has been released. I can open the pressure cooker now. Let's see how the meat is doing. The meat is tender already. I love pressure cookers. Okay, as you can see, I have quite a bit of liquid, which some of it I'm going to remove to make the gravy. Okay, that's more like it. So I save quite a bit of liquid to make gravy. Do the same again. I'm going to thicken the stew with some flour. Same method as with the peas. But again, if you want to, you can thicken your stew with corn flour. And it's optional. If you want, just wait a bit until it cools down. And the easiest to work with pies if your stew is completely cold. However, I don't have the time and I don't have the patience. Okay guys, so the meat is in, and now we're gonna add the top layer, just like so. And I'm going to pinch the sides. And bear in mind, this is not something I've actually tried before. I hope that the result is going to be great, but we'll see. And just get rid of the excess pastry. Alright, lovely. And this goes in the oven. We'll see what happens. Now for the rest of the pastry, I'm just going to turn into Pogácsa. I'm gonna use a small pastry cutter, cut them out. How does the pie look? Pie looks gorgeous. At this point I'm going to add the pogácsa. Okay guys, I'm just going to add the remaining liquid to the rest to form the gravy. Alright guys, I can tell you that this smells absolutely amazing. Let's see how the pie looks. And it looks pretty much done to me. Pogácsa, maybe a bit longer. But let's move the pie. I'm very curious how this is going to work. Pogácsa is going to be ready in no time. Again, this is the first attempt I've ever tried. Let's see how it works. This is going to be messy. I'm not even going to try to pretend that it will not be, but let's plate up anyway. And of course, a bit of peas. Alright guys, it's the day after. I just wanted to show you that it does actually look quite nice. I should have waited yesterday before I've cut the pie, but yeah, this is what it looks now. Okay guys, I know it doesn't look too appetizing. It looks more like something that's been how to say thrown up. Anyway, we all know this is good food, and it would have looked much better if I would have made just an individual pie and served it with the peas, but that's not what I've done. Again, you have the pogácsa as well, and guys, this is new for me as well. I think it's going to taste awesome. I really hope you enjoyed this recipe, and I shall see you on the next one. So thanks for watching guys. Of course, don't forget about the gravy, but it's a mess already, so what difference does it make? Thanks for watching. Maybe try this, maybe don't, maybe just go for the stew. What do I need for this, spoon or fork? I go with fork and knife and then come back for spoon. Thanks for watching.